having more manufacturing setup, we came to a situation where we had two people for for a particular position of a plasma cutting machine, and both were engineers, one a girl and one a boy. Okay, and I mean both were competent, and the girl came out extremely well in terms of, and we had to handle that bias in terms of why not take her. I mean, there was no reason, but other than the fact that it's a plasma cutting machine, which is more of a bit of a physical, but today's plasma cutting is not physical per se, you know that. So basically, then I could influence. I mean, being there, I mean, the people were willing. I mean, it was there to see, and people were willing. So that the girl was a scuba diver also. I mean, there are various things in her hobby which made her different, be able to accept that, and she did a very good and interesting stint there. So that's one of the thing where she could break the barrier of a particular particular area, and also we could also break the barrier. It is not only her. I mean, that's one coming from there. I was just and actually the question why I said this example is also she comes from a army background, so she had traveled lot places, etc. So like, this question is to you, Chamade, is that because this I'm taking the liberty of having our earlier chat someday about your background, etc. So is this something, like being able to break such stereotypes, being able to break such thing has to go with our background of how we are raised, your some of your personal experience and some of the difficulties or any other difficult situation that you have seen, if you can touch upon that.
So when we talk about women breaking grounds, the most important fact is how they were brought up, as Shilpa rightly said. You see, when we look at the women of the 30s, they were the women who grew up, with stories of Jhansi Ki Rani and Nightingale. But they could not educate themselves. They educated their daughters. And when they educated their daughters, they kept all the norms in place. You are a daughter, you're getting educated, but you have to wear a sari. You have to be, seen, not heard. Though, a woman's place is by the hearth and not, out. So, keeping all the norms in place, these mothers, they struggled to get their daughters educated. These daughters, when they came up, it was we. We were born to them. And so, we learned a little bit more. We could wear uniforms to school. We could go out on a girls' picnic. We had girls of our generation going to hostels, girls' hostels. And then when we have our kids, the next generation kids coming in, the other children today who are wearing jeans, they're wearing toned jeans, they're wearing tops. And, like when we were there, virginity was a very big thing. I mean, we could not even dare, when you see movies, a girl is married and her ex-friend comes over and the whole thing hiding the entire fact. Three things have changed. So definitely, the progress of a woman down the ages has been from the suppression, the oppression, the desires of their parents, and mostly their mother. I tell you about myself, my mom, she was born in 1930. And she used to go with her brothers and she used to do shooting. Okay, but she was never allowed to ride a horse. So when I was born, and I was not like my sister, my sisters are very quiet, good girls. One of them sitting there. So, very quiet, good, decent girls. But I was a gunda. So, what I did is, I learned to ride a bike. I learned, there was a race course near my house. I used to go play with horses and, ride a horse also. But, and when I used to do it, though my mom used to scream a lot, at the same time she used to say, "Nee, Chama, you're doing something which I would love to do." So, I feel that the girls today, the emancipation of the girls today, is somewhere linked to the desires of the parents and more particularly of the mother. So that is one part of it, Shilpa. Let me tell you, a particular incident in my life. We were in Calcutta. My father shifted out to a place called Korba. And then my sister and myself was left in Calcutta to study. So initially, my mom used to feel that, somebody should stay with them. So she was at the feet of some cousin or the other cousin brother or the other to come and stay with us in the flat. Ultimately, she realized it doesn't work. So the two of us started staying alone. And when we were living alone, there were neighbors. And one of the neighbors came and told my parents, "Oh, you left your daughters alone to stay in a flat. What if you have if you one of them go pregnant?" So my mom looked them straight into the eyes and she says, "Well, I'll bring up my grandchild." So from a woman of 19th born 1930, and I'm talking about an incident which was in 1978 when I was maybe 18 or 19 years old. So coming from a woman born in 1930, I actually today, from where I stand, I feel that they are the ones who have given us the platform of where we are. Also, today in my profession, I'm a lawyer, everybody knows. In my profession, when we girls come in, when I joined the profession, the first thing was, "Whose junior are you?" And then, the second thing, "Hey, you managed to, telling my senior, "Oh, you managed to get her." That was a feeling that every girl who joined the profession was a commodity. And it was not our brains. It was not that I've passed law. It was a commodity. That, I'll digress. It takes me back, my cousin sister in 1962, she joined medicine. And the elders in the family, they went on a fast unto death. They're saying, a girl studying medicine, she'll lose her character. So when she, with a great difficulty, did medicine, today she's married, she's settled in the US. When I joined the profession, it was the same thing. A woman joining the profession, which is essentially a male-dominated place, it is not a job where you are behind the desk, or you've got a job profile, you're doing your job. Here we are all professionals, and you wait for somebody to give you a case, and that's a mindset. If you have a problem, you would not go to a lady advocate, you would go to a male advocate. And then the male advocates want people to do the research work for them, and to do other jobs for them, drafting research and all. So for that, they take on their juniors. So the moment he's taking on a junior, he is actually paying you out of his own personal earnings. He is not getting paid for the junior. So that being the situation, every time you took on a lady junior, the question was, why her? What extra is she giving to you that you didn't take on a male junior? So it was a very difficult situation to be in, and I'm grateful to the ladies who were there prior to me, and who actually would tell us, we were unsuspecting. They would tell us, be careful, that person is taking you for a conference, be careful. And that is something which I tell my juniors today. Moment they come to me and they say, "Didi, I want to join the profession," the first thing I tell them, look, it's very tough, it's a man's world. Here you don't have there is nothing set such as womanhood. You have to read out briefs in the court relating to rape or maybe to sexual harassment, and really nasty briefs. You have to read it out in open court. You have to sit with the guy next to you and talk about everything under the earth. And at the same time, you have to be prepared for the negative vibes that come to you because you are a woman. Are you willing to take it? So, I personally feel that as a woman, it is not your job profile, it is not your career. The very fact that you can stand up to your womanhood and you can look into the eye of the most lecherous guy and tell him, "Look, I know you're looking at me." So, it's that boldness. The women require that boldness with which we go forward. And that boldness only comes, from family background and family support. So again, I come back to what you said, Shilpa. Until and unless your family is not there to support you, and the family is not there to tell you, go ahead, it is a very, very difficult task for a woman to actually take that first step forward.
Thank you. With that, Ruby, I have one particular point to ask you in terms of what she was saying. In terms of you do a lot of work on the NLP side. Okay, right. So keeping that in mind, are the psychological build-ups becoming different, or is there some kind of changes, required or happening there to be able to stand up what she was mentioning to, or what is your take on that?
See, there is a huge dichotomy on this, depending on, like the other panelists mentioned, your family background and where you grew up. It's your atmosphere which shapes your environment, is the main thing I've seen. And then your ability to adapt to, if you are a woman, most in our cases, most of us go and land up in the guy's place once we are married and things like that. Even today, okay, even I do that. So their kind of mentality and their ability to adapt to you and your ability to adjust to them is what makes or breaks the deal, is what I've found. For example, without naming anyone, recently I am coaching this lady who's a successful entrepreneur in her own rights, has been a long time colleague for me at some point in time in one of the best institutes. Again, an HR professional, got married to a person who is a very senior banker in one of the reputed organizations, doing very well financially and therefore very well established, but family background and roots still remain. It's a joint family with roots, because the other brother is in the family business, the older brother, and he's gone ahead into finance and done this thing, and therefore decided to marry a girl who's a career. So first thing she had to do was to let go of her career, okay, because they wanted her to have a child, and she, in her own mind, she's a very nice woman, nothing wrong with her. She doesn't want to own a child of her own. She doesn't want to give birth to a child. She's okay to adopt one or to bring up any other child, and it's her personal choice, okay. But they felt, because she was working, she did not want to be a mother, and somehow she got into a situation where she had to give up her job. Then, being the person that she is, entrepreneur person, she started some small work from home, and with the kind of networking she has, she's doing very decent business. Still doesn't have a child. I'm happy that she's been able to maintain it, but she's been pushed to such a situation that sometimes she has these mental breakdowns, and she's not able to adjust. So that's when she needs a lot of coaching, counseling, for her to understand what she is doing is her personal choice. I mean, what we forget, that each one of us are free to have our choices, and this is a very educated family, by the way. So in spite of that, you face these challenges. If your education levels, I'm not talking of your levels of degrees, but your education exposure levels vary. Sometimes you can have these problems, but this is very exposed and educated family otherwise. But they still face problems. I mean, in NLP, you still come across people like this, and this was a big surprise for me. I mean, so that's what it is. Yes, ma'am.
I want to just
Sorry,
cut in
Jayashree.
here. No, Jayashree, please. Fascinating stories you've had. My story is very different. I'm a third generation career woman. I'm from Kerala. My grandmother worked, and she worked in a job which is like sales but better. She was at the Presidency Education Service setting up girls' schools in the 1920s and 1930s. And then I got married to a Marwadi joint family where I was the first career woman, and I was doubly blessed. They were wonderful. They ran the home so that I could go out and travel. So I think one thing we need to recognize is not just the mothers, it's the men in the family, the way they are brought up. You know, most of us realize now with the lockdown how much equality depends on the domestic help who comes in. Husband and wife can go to work because there's somebody holding the fort, and the lady who was coming up and down on the local trains, she moved in with us now. And then when she goes back, she says, I have to do all the housework. She's the only earner. Her husband and son are unemployed, but they won't cook. They are paying a neighbor to come and cook for them. So it starts with the mindset of everybody in the family, including the poorest of men who are unemployed, but they still will not do the housework. So we have generations of change. I have seen, being third generation from birth and first generation from marriage, they can change, and I still am supported by my family, by my marital family. So I've just been lucky. We just have to multiply that across many more people at all levels.
I just wanted to add a small thing on the same note, on a personal level. You've seen I'm traveling all the time, and it is thanks to my supportive. Like I have moved in with my in-laws after marriage and all, and most of my friends thought I did the biggest blunder of my life. But on hindsight, I feel that's the best decision. One of the best decisions I took. My father-in-law was very clear: if you want to sit at home, your choice. If you want to go out and work like a professional, not like half and half. And mine is also my mother's grandmother was the first graduate and used to work for telecoms. So yeah, so that's how I'm blessed. But there are a lot of people around us who we can actually influence. Thanks.
Should I add on something? I tell you, on this issue. You know, at the end of the day, I don't think, as you said rightfully, it's not the education, it is the overall upbringing of a person. Now, I know this couple, you know, they are so poor. The guy, he's got this, you know, this tin ka chota sa dukan, you know, where he sells tea and those, local cookies. And his wife is at home. She does the brooming, she does the swapping, she cleans the house, she looks after this guy. They've got a daughter, she does everything. You know, fetches the water from outside and takes out everything. And I, every day morning, religiously go out to work. I take my car, I go out to work and I come back. And, you know, she stays just where I'm leaving the house, she stays there. And every day she'll ask me, Bodhi, bhalo acho to? And I'll ask her, Monu, how are you? So one day, you know, I just curiosity, you know, like during this lockdown, I knew that tea shop is not functioning. And I saw her husband was doing some gardening. So I asked her, I told him, Shambhuda, how are you managing? So you know what Monu says? She says, no, after such a long time, he has had time to sit at home, so let him relax. I like to see him relaxing. And you know what he said? He says, you know why I relax? Because when I used to earn, I used to give all the money to her. She has managed the house and she's got savings. And that is how I'm being able to relax. Now, this is a lesson from somebody, two people totally uneducated. At the same time, I know of families where husband and wife are very highly educated. Their children are going to very good schools. I've had this, a divorce case coming to me. And see the issues on which they are fighting. You know, the issues are that, you know, when I'm tired, I go off to sleep. He never puts the food into the fridge. And he says, do you mean to say at this stage I'm going to do that? Or, you know, like she's saying that, she's leaving for work because she's in a hurry and comes back home and finds the bed is undone. And the husband says, is that what I'm supposed to do? So here we have got two really very educated people and two people who are totally uneducated. It is the mindset.
So now that I have the mic. But when I was hearing the stories, I'm actually reminded of this short film called Juice. I don't know whether any of you have watched. No? Shefali Shah. It's a 15-minute film by Neeraj Gheban. And it's an amazing story of this because it actually talks about how men, the families meet for a party and the men are all sitting and drinking and all the women are in the kitchen and the children are all playing. And I won't go into the story, but all the men feel that the women have to cook and bring their food and the women feel that they have to cook. And they even tell the little girl that your brother's bhaiya wahan pe hai, go and give the food. So it's that same, you know, cycle, where you see your parents doing it, and unless you break through that, it's not going to happen. And I think here, of course, there is, you know, people here are of much older age, and I don't know who all are going to be watching this, but I think the change starts with us. And that's a promise I made to myself. So when my son was getting ready to go abroad and study, I told him, you also have to learn how to make the bed, you have to learn how to cook, you have to learn how to wash, because that's your job as well. And, you know, if you don't tell the boy at home that he has to do it when he's growing up, he's not going to do it when he's grown up already.
Very true. That way, I've always maintained that I'm a very inefficient as mother, and hence made my support system very efficient around me. So my son is very, very independent that way. Everybody around me are very self-sufficient that way. So that's been really blessed that way. So I will just ask Jayashree this question is in terms of that. and taking again a bit of a liberty of knowing a background thanks to SRC, is that you took up the business at a very difficult time, okay, and it was not the thing that you were doing earlier, or the business has seen you doing it earlier. So tell us something about that, a bit of your challenges and how you overcame.
That's not really a gender issue, right? It's a personal thing. So, what happened is my husband passed away suddenly, and I had to step into the. It's okay. It happened. The lesson I can give for a Women's Day perspective is that you see so many world leaders who are women who came in that same way, from Sirimao Bandaranaike to Corazon Aquino to various people. I'm not talking of people in India, but across the world. So when they're forced into this position, they're able to cope. And so was I. And I was lucky because it was a smoothly running company and they had a lot of love and family feeling for us and they run with it. So it's been a very good experience. The lesson for us as women is that you should never think of something as being impossible. I'm not an engineer. How can I run an engineering company? There are brilliant engineers who do the job for you. Similarly, as a politician, because I got in because I was the heir or the daughter of somebody like, many of the Asian world leaders, they're running very well. But we need to have a pipeline for growing people on their own steam. We have very few. And that's the lesson for us, that if you're put into hot water, you're able to do it. Why do you need to be put into hot water? Do it normally, do it naturally. Thank you.
That's so gracefully said.
So, this is a question for both Ruby and Janet. I'll go to Ruby first in terms of, like you both came into entrepreneurship on your own. I mean, not really like in a situation where you retired and moved into this kind of an entrepreneurship and almost at the peak of your career, right? So, in terms of, how did you see economics working there and how much of it was heart and overhead? I mean, of course, the passion is what drives, right? But at the end of the day, since it is about economic growth and women growth is synonymous, so I would like to take your, hear your views on that.
See, it's a very simple decision. I was feeling like, as a woman, I was hitting a lot of glass ceilings. The biggest challenge being my family, my in-laws, everyone's based out of Calcutta, and there is so much you can do in Calcutta and not more. And I tried holding long-distance situations or where you have flexi time and you can work and travel and things like that. And my child was growing up. My son's 16 now. He was 7 or 8 when I decided he needed, he's someone who's happy to see the parents on weekends. Other days he doesn't even expect us. He runs on auto mode and thankfully independent. Okay. So, but kind of some interventions were needed for him, and also I'm not one of those people. While I am brave in any which ways, I can't stay out of home for 15, 18, 20 days and then come back. I cannot live like that. I need to be back with my family at the end of every week if need be. So that was becoming a stress point for me, which is when I decided I cannot leave while my organizations were supporting, they're saying every weekend you go back home, and flying from various destinations on a Friday night and taking the Monday morning flight was a stress point, a major stress point for me. I tried doing that for 6 months. At the end of it, I decided, why don't I spend the same money and energy on myself and get something established where I'll be happy to do things that I love to do, and also for the people who might end up seeing things the way I do, because at work, when you are the only woman in the entire space of this thing, you have to really push your voice. No, not capabilities. Everyone's equally capable to be heard and to be. Recognition comes any which ways, because unless you have a supporting mentor, you don't reach there. But your peers and your juniors have to be supportive, and to be able to do that, you have to kind of, I was given two names while I was working. One was Rubypedia. Oh, she seems to know everything. She's Rubypedia. So that was a nickname which I figured I had. I mean, you tell her anything, she will do it. She's Rubypedia. And then I was also called Rudolf Hitler. I mean, after Adolf Hitler, I mean, she would sledgehammer, because sometimes you had to. I mean, you know you are correct, but you wouldn't find the right way to get it done. It happened. I mean, now it is, I guess, much easier. So with all these things, there was a stress also